This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. This program...
Good afternoon and welcome to the Maasai Mara, where that is a small portion of the migrating herds. My name is James Hendry and this is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
Five, four, three, two, one. You are live. You are live.
Everybody, here we sit with a small piece of the migration herds. Probably about, I don't know, there are about 1,000 wildebeest around us here. My name is James Hendry, as I said, and the reason Fergus is not swinging the camera back towards me is because we've had to keep the windscreen up. It's very dirty, and, the reason we have to keep the windscreen up, of course, is because the road is very bumpy and the roof is threatening to detach onto my head and give me a concussion, even though I have a new hat on. Hashtag Safari Live is how you get hold of us, and we will be talking to you exclusively from the Mara today, unless a deluge begins. It's quite possible that it will. Scott Dyson is on one vehicle and manning the river cams with his, bald head exposed to the elements because he's inside. As Stefan Winterboer, he'll be alternating between administration and observing what is crossing the rivers and then showing you those things. Let us go back to these wildebeest for now. There they are. And I don't know if any of you watched the TV show that we put on Friday. It was at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Time, Nat Geo Wild. I have to say that. And we'll be doing it again on Friday at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Nat Geo Wild. And this is around where Brent and Jamie were looking for lions and wildebeest. Well, and they found both of those things. They had a little bit of dodgy signal at the time. But what we can see, if we look beyond where these wildebeest are, you can see a line of trees. That line of trees is the Sand River, and it forms the Tanzanian border. And beyond that, of course, is Tanzania. And, we're looking due south pretty much now. And if you go far enough, we'll see Djuma. But this camera's not quite powerful enough to reach that far just yet. But what you can see is that there is zero wildebeest activity going on there. Rebecca, I am struggling horribly with my comms at the moment, so you might have to give me that message again. Right. Okay, so no wildebeest there. We're going to continue and find a few more wildebeest, I hope. While we do that, Scott Dyson is just dying to say hello to you.
Hello everyone, and welcome on board with myself, Scott, and Senzo on camera. I've just been spying up on that hill over there. Alex, one of our tech geniuses, is up there tweaking some of our receivers. We sadly cannot see him, he's obscured by bushes. But he's doing some work there, and that's why James and I are spending some time here. It's not an area we have spent a lot of time. Brent's been the one spending a lot of time in this area of the Mara, so it's great for us to be able to explore this new area, new roads, new scenery. Tanzania not far to our south, and also something interesting to our right, which actually stopped us here. And we caught the stench of it from quite a long way off. And that's interesting because it already indicates how much surplus food there is at the moment, and the migration's hardly even reached full swing in this area. Yet this wildebeest, who knows how it died? It may have been killed by lions and abandoned, or maybe it just died of natural causes. But the fact that no hyena have opened it up and thus made it difficult for the vultures to get into it means it's been rotting, which is really interesting. And a good reminder of the surplus and bounty of the migration. The migration has been moving through these parts more than it has been where we are further north of here. And you can even see a lot of the grass here is quite short. It's already been mowed by a lot of the wildebeest and zebra, but they've been toing and froing kind of backwards and forwards over the Kenyan and Tanzanian border, which is literally just over this little ridge here. So that is Tanzania. Those are Tanzanian trees, yet the foreground is Kenya. Beautiful. I love this area of the Mara. I was lucky enough to spend some time here last year, but only a few days. And I actually remember seeing a cheetah kill not far from here, so who knows, maybe we'll be lucky. Good area for lion as well. And nice cool weather. So good prospects for the cats to be on the move. Okay, well, we're going to carry on working our way around this area, seeing what we can find. I'm hoping some wildebeest won't be too far from us, but for now, Jay.
All right, yes, what we're going to do is follow. You see that bird over there, Fergus? Look at it, it's a vulture. And we've seen some of them going down not far from here. We're going to go along this track. Oh, sorry, Fergus, sorry. That is called throwing your mate under the bus right there. Let's go along here. We found a whole lot of vultures landing, followed closely by a minibus. 4x4 minibus. Couldn't believe it. So let's drive along here and see if we can see what there is. Now, of course, our ancient ancestors, of which I have spoken many times since I've been in this area, I've been reading lots about this, and what we find is that there was probably some kind of symbiotic relationship between the vultures and the people that lived in this area many hundreds of thousands of years ago, and the proto-people that lived in this area. Because for vultures, it's very difficult for them to open up a carcass. They don't really have teeth, or they don't have teeth at all. And many of them do not have beaks sharp enough to open up a fresh carcass. But the people, of course, would have done that for them. And the vulture's role in that little relationship was to show the people, of course, where the carcasses were. And so I think quite interestingly, there was a symbiotic relationship between vultures and humans and proto-humans that used to live in this area. Right, well, there's a tree stuffed full of them, all taking off in front. I know that this windscreen is a pain, but I promise you it's not nearly as much pain as I'd be feeling. They're all coming off the ground here. There they are. Hundreds of them. Hundreds. Let's see what we've got in here. There. Massive lappet-faced vultures now taking off. I do apologize once again for the marabou stork. And I think what we'll have here, with birds on the ground and vultures on the ground, is a dead thing, obviously. But I think most likely there isn't a predator around it. And this is exactly, of course, how our human ancestors used to find things to eat. You see anything there, Ferg? Some ribs. You got them. Ah, yes, a carcass. Right, well, it was relatively interesting, tasty ribs. Let's go back a little bit. That looks pretty freshly killed. I wonder if it wasn't a cheetah, or perhaps just the old age or disease that kills so many animals out here. Brilliant. So, that was us playing ancient human. And then we'd have chased them off. And interestingly, one of the major nutrients we wanted, of course, was the fat that is in the marrow of the bones. And if you don't break the bone open, the marrow stays fresh inside it, apparently for quite a few days. So you could find the big bones of a carcass like that, and then you could carry them home with you, or to your cave, or to your little hovel that you'd built somewhere safe, out of the way of the hyenas marauding at night. And then you could keep it for a couple of days, and it would still be edible because, of course, the bone was relatively airtight. Which I think is quite interesting, really. Rebecca, just keep doing little communications tests with me, if you don't mind. Rebecca is directing, by the way, from the Mara. She's not talking, is she, Fergus?
Yes, indeed.
She is. What is she saying? I cannot hear. I see. Scott is chatting to Alex. That's fascinating. Remember, hashtag Safari Live is how you get hold of us. Send us questions or comments. Tell us what you think. Let me get out of this area. And then I'm going to show you where a very large grouping of wildebeest is. Got that? Now, Dr. Hyena, you're wondering if there were any hyenas in that vulture sighting. Dr. Hyena, there were no hyenas in that vulture sighting. You will find that when there are vultures on the ground, there are highly, highly unlikely that there will be actually predators on the ground, because they will chase the vultures away. Now, this is going to be a long distance view, but this, I believe, is the herd that Brent was around on Friday morning. Not this hill, the one after, is covered in wildebeest. Can you see them, folks? Yes, there they are. Marvelous. That's them. Now, they're not far from the Mara River, but they're far from the crossing points that Steph is manning at the moment with his river cams. And what you will find is that I think they could cross into the Mara Triangle using the lookout crossings. Those are those very steep, nasty crossings that really, probably they get more injured by themselves than they do by the crocodiles, etc. in the river around those crossings. But there we have it. Marvellous, thank you. Good. On we go. Let me know if you think I've missed anything, Fergus. Oh, she's saying something. Ah, there we go. Ah. James, you're wondering about a thicker, fattier layer on animals during the winter time, and whether they get, animals here and in South Africa get a thicker, fatter layer. No, they don't. You're right. It doesn't get cold enough. I think you might find there's a thickening of the fur. There certainly is on domestic animals. But the need to lay down fat as insulation just doesn't occur, especially not here. You know, here it very seldom drops below sort of 8 degrees, or 8 degrees Celsius, that is. And so you really just need a little bit of fur to cover you, and then you're fine. In South Africa, in the low veld, it will get down to about 4 degrees or so, which also isn't very cold. But of course in the Kalahari, in the desert areas, it can get well below freezing sometimes. But in the middle of the day, you can find the sun and stand in the sun. So you might find that something like a gemsbok and maybe a springbok puts on a little bit of fat every so often, now and again. But I don't think it's not a huge thing out here. I've lost her again. So we must go to Scott. Okay, sorry everybody, my communication's not great. Let's head across to Scott and find what he's doing.
Welcome back. So it appears our and we're quite away from camp, so the plan is to rather try and cover some ground early on, and once we get closer to camp we'll slow things down a bit, but of course we will be stopping along the way for anything exciting. Loving to get to know, and obviously loving having you with us every step of the way. And learning as we go along. Diana, great to have you with us. You'd like to know if there's been any feedback on the three cubs, one of which was stuck in that crevice on Friday night for some of you, Saturday morning for us. And yes, we got a report this morning actually from one of the rangers, also known as Askaris in the local lingo, and he said he did lioness with all 3 cubs. So some wonderful news. It'll be a mystery to us forever as to how it was eventually retrieved from that crevice, whether it A, made its own way out, because another cub did make it down in there, so it would have been possible in theory. It didn't seem to be disabled in any way. The second option would have been, or second possibility would have been that its mother actually carried it out. But the fact that she failed to do that when we were watching makes me think that probably it was one of the cub's aunts, one of the other lioness within the pride that possibly went down into there and rescued that cub out. But we will never know for certain. The good news is at least that cub is still alive and kicking. And who knows, maybe later this evening we'll bump into them. We got a report that 2 of the lioness from the Agama pride caught a baby giraffe yesterday morning. And I saw another one individual on a wildebeest kill this morning, quite briefly. So it sounds like they're doing well regarding collecting food. So that is also some more good news. Must have been a serious thing to see 2 lioness bringing down a young giraffe. I'm not sure how young exactly it was, but even the smallest of giraffes is still quite a big animal. And already I've heard that a lot of you are responding and letting us know that you are overjoyed that that cub is out and about and alive. So thank you for sending through that feedback. And for any of you who may be joining for the first time, it is important that you know that you too can chat with us. It's very simple. You just hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or there's, depending on which platform you're watching, there's various comment boxes that you can comment in. Here's something interesting up ahead of us, a little crime scene on the road. Now those are very large feathers, that of an ostrich, both black and white, so it indicates that this was a male. And there's a whole bunch more, even further down the road. So I'm guessing what happened here is one unlucky ostrich met its fate, possibly with lion, maybe cheetah. More likely lion though, especially a big male ostrich like this. Wouldn't that be something incredible to see? Interesting. And like I keep saying, the coming weeks and months are going to be an unbelievable adventure in terms of what we get to see, because this place certainly is a wonderland when it comes to safari and good sightings. So brace yourself for some interesting things. There's just been a question through regarding an interesting bird from I Walk Through the Rain, and you would like to know if there are any shoebills here. Shoebill is quite a prehistoric bird, or at least prehistoric looking bird, and no, sadly you do not get any here. They prefer more Central African swampy areas like the Congo and Uganda. Those are 2 good places to see them. I think Zambia is another good place. I've never seen one of them, but certainly on the list of things to do. And who knows, hopefully one day we will all be able to travel somewhere together with Safari Live and view shoebill together. But they're quite a unique species in that they are only found in quite set locations. Good stuff. Well, James is ahead of me. He's heading, he may have already crossed over the bridge actually. If not, he'll be close to it, still heading east. And you're going to leapfrog about 5 kilometers up ahead. Well, you were going to, but now you're going to stay with me. James is obviously maybe crossing the bridge now in a low signal area. But you're going to be leapfrogging at some points 5 or so kilometers west of us, sorry, not east. Quite bumpy road, so I'm just going to take it slowly. We've got quite a lot of precious equipment strapped into this vehicle, and the bumpy roads don't do it any good. And you never know what could be lurking in these croton thickets, so as we go past slowly, it increases our likelihood of spotting something interesting. The lions love to sleep in these croton thickets because they provide good thick shade and cover. So you often find them lurking out there in the daytime hours. Hello to Janet. You would like to know what is my favorite animal in the Masai Mara. I guess it'd be kind of rude not to say the wildebeest, because they kind of make it what it is. Even though they're not here all the time, or at least they're not here in their numbers. But if it wasn't for them, and the zebra, but there's not as many as zebra, that's why wildebeest is getting my vote today, there wouldn't be the spectacle that we've already got a glimpse of and are about to be spectators to. So, the wildebeest. But if you ask me tomorrow, I'll probably have another animal in mind. I battle to stick to my favorites, and I allow them to chop and change. That was an overland truck. That was quite a fun way to travel through Africa. In a big truck with a tour guide, and they literally hop from country to country, possibly doing 5 or 6 African countries on their road trip. Obviously you need time on your side because it's not a short affair. Now, one of the animals that came to mind as a favorite, because I don't get to see them often, or I haven't seen them much in my career as a safari guide, is the mighty crocodile. And you'll be glad to know Steph has found some on the river cam.
Good afternoon and hello, and yes, it is Steph on the river cam feeds today from the Mara River here in Kenya, or southern Kenya really. And yes, we've got one of these gigantic crocodiles. Nile crocodile. He's just climbed out of the water. You can see that sheen of the water still on his skin, and they do that because they are cold-blooded. And what that means is that they control their body's temperature using the environment rather than their metabolism. We warm-blooded creatures have a constant body temperature of about 37 degrees centigrade, and a degree or two above or below that can mean catastrophe for us. Whereas for these crocodiles, they can shift by up to 10 degrees, 15 degrees in any direction, up and down. They can speed their metabolism up. They can slow their metabolism down depending on the environment. But just to give you some perspective about how big this guy is, he's probably about a 10 or 12-foot crocodile, not the biggest ones that you find over here, but definitely a crocodile to be reckoned with. I must Between 60 and 80 years old would be my very uneducated guess at crocodiles. Another very cool thing that we can see is how crocodiles swim. So crocodiles will change direction using their feet. Their feet are webbed. Those feet, incidentally, are about as big as mine. I'm a size 9 US shoe. That is probably about a size 11 US shoe. And you can have a look. It has a claw on it, but it also is webbed. But have a look at the shape. And you see how it's shaped like a paddle? It's flattened. So obviously when the crocodile swims, he can fan that out, and it becomes almost like a fin of a fish. Then what they do to propel themselves through the water is they use their tail, which towards the end is flattened. And if you've ever watched a lizard swim, that is exactly the same as how crocodiles swim. They will use that immense back muscle that they've got to swish themselves from side to side, and that will create a propulsion force through the water, and they can propel themselves faster than almost anything else of their size in this freshwater ecosystem at the moment. Isn't that just amazing? JC Charles, you just asked me why it's called the Nile crocodile when we're very far away from the Nile. JC Charles, quite similar to how many of these sort of common names are described. It's where they were first seen, and you can imagine that the Nile River being navigable but also very close to Europe was, for a European, one of the first places that they would have seen the Nile crocodile. But it was described there first scientifically to the Western world, but they have occurred in Africa for many, many, many centuries. And so it's just this particular crocodile, this particular organism, having all the characteristics of its brethren in all the other places, make this a Nile crocodile. I want to just show you how wide the river is at this point. You can see that that's the Mara River. Absolutely not as wide as it should be at this point, but definitely wide enough. Now, on that note, we're going to be sending you over to James, who's managed to find himself some more signal and has some vultures to show you.
There we have a spectacular swarm of vultures. They're unfortunately moving south quite speedily into Tanzania, but there was a vast, vast number, at least 100 of them swirling around, probably on a thermal, I think. And I think they've just come out of the valley here. We're very, very close now to the confluence of the Sand rivers or the Sand and Mara rivers. And I'm afraid, yes, still there's a pole in the way. I do apologize for that, as I said. There they all are. Very well spotted there, Fergus. I can't see them through this, well, mud-bespattered windscreen. So soon we will be crossing back onto the Mara Triangle out of the Mara National Reserve, which of course is all part of the same ecosystem, some 370,000 acres, 150,000 hectares, 1,510 square kilometers. Don't know how many square miles that is, probably about 600, I think. No, but more than that. And the winds are starting to blow, as they do at this time of the day out here, especially when there are storms brewing. And there are storms brewing all around us. Whether or not they will dump upon Fergus and I again, I'm not sure. Of course, we have been very, very unlucky when it's come to storms of late. Very pretty clouds, though, as you can see. It's very artistic there, Fergus. Makes me feel like I'm on an aeroplane, which I'm sure is how those vultures feel.
Yeah, would you like the chicken or the beef?
Well, I think they're going to be having some beef. There's a stork there as well. While they're thinking about beef or chicken or fish or vegetarian, let's head across to Scott Dyson, who has managed to find, well, something rather spotted and gold.
Well, we owe a big thanks to Alex, our tech genius, not only for bringing you these pictures, but also for finding this cheetah for us. He was ahead of us on his way back to camp when he spotted this cheetah, and he gave some directions to me. It would have been fairly easy just to drive straight past us. They do blend in well. And isn't this awesome? Now, I haven't spent much time with cheetah in my career as a guide, so I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess as to whether this is a male or a female just yet. What I can tell you, though, is that it is well fed. And that's clearly evident by the large belly. They're very, very chic animals, very slender. So a big belly like that indicates a good meal has been had very recently. And I think this individual is just going to relax for the rest of the afternoon, possibly even until the morning. Unless, of course, it would like to possibly go and have a drink. I'm very happy that a lot of you are ecstatic to be viewing a cheetah. We haven't managed to bring you that many since we've been here. At least I haven't been able to bring you one. This is the first cheetah I've actually seen since I've been here. So, a very, very welcome sight. Interestingly, let's take a look around, just to give you an idea of how much food is available for these creatures at the moment, even though the migration's not fully here. There's one wildebeest dotted on the horizon over there, and then as we pan to the left, there's quite a few zebra and more wildebeest not too far from this cheetah, so surrounded by good prey opportunities. The wildebeest is quite a large item of prey for cheetah to bring down, especially on their own. But young wildebeest, young zebra are certainly game. And I'm hoping to try and spend some time with a coalition of 5 male cheetahs. They are causing havoc in the eastern side of the Mara Reserve. And they're actually taking down fully grown male wildebeest, or female wildebeest, but fully grown very large wildebeest, and that is something quite unique. It's fascinating to see. I've seen a short clip of these 5 males. Literally, it's like watching lions on a buffalo. They're jumping on its back, tackling it down. It manages to get up. It's a serious showdown. Interestingly, quite dangerous for the cheetah to take on large prey like that. Like I said, they're very, very slight animals, so it's very important to realize that there's dangers involved, as there are dangers involved for lions when they hunt buffalo. See, we are going to just fix our roof that seems to have come undone, and we will be sure to bring you some more images of this cheetah a little bit later.
That is 100% true there, friend Scott, but just have a look at this. We found another crocodile at another crossing. This is Dusty Crossing. This is one of the 4 crossings that we have under camera view here in the Mara and on the Mara River. And there you've got a gigantic crocodile again, lying basking. Now, similar to that crocodile that we've just seen who climbed out of the water to increase his metabolism, this crocodile is done exactly the same, only is now skirting a very fine line between being too hot and between being too cold. And he's trying to keep it just right. What he's doing is he's sitting with his mouth open so that he can regulate his temperature through evapotranspiration, through evaporating water on the planet to actively hunt human beings. And just look at that. Imagine being in the jaws of that. Many hundreds of thousands of people over the years have fallen prey to crocodiles. And isn't that scary? Now that whole skull is just bone. The scales that you're seeing there that give the skull the color are in actual fact just a tiny scale on top of the bone. When a crocodile dies, that skin falls away and almost the entire head is just left, barring the massive muscles. Now, basically where the mouth ends, you'll notice some horizontal scales. That's the skin covering some muscles which join the bottom jaw to the top. Just behind the head, you'll notice a ridge. The muscles go basically attached to the skull just behind that ridge and then to the bottom jaw. And they can close those jaws with a veracity that honestly astounds a person. Much, much harder than anything else. There we've thrown you over to Main North Crossing, to another crocodile that's basking in the sun, and this one we can get a lot closer to. And you can see this crocodile is much drier, but definitely alive. Look at that, nose opening and closing. Now look at that. I'm convinced that crocodiles, similar to sharks, have sensory organelle in their noses. Have a look at all those pits that you can see in the skin. I'm almost 100% certain that they contain some or other type of sensory organelle, and that allows the crocodile to sense something in the water. They're very, very sensitive to smells. They will investigate with their noses any detritus that comes down the river. And just have a look at this. I mean, that you couldn't get closer to this crocodile, I think, at the zoo even. Let's go out and show you a little bit about it. Now, Linda, you wanted to know if there are any predators that crocodiles have to worry about. I have seen lion and leopard kill crocodile before in videos. I haven't seen it personally. I've seen lion tackle crocodile before, but I haven't seen them prey on full-grown crocodile. I would imagine that crocodiles are their own worst enemies, and that a lot of young crocodiles fall prey and fall victim to birds and other forms of predators. But when they're adult, or when they're full grown, I would imagine that being injured by each other at feeding frenzies is what hurts them the most. And then, of course, drought, excess temperatures. If their water runs out and they have to make a migration to go somewhere. Let's have a look. This is now Dusty crossing. You can see this crocodile, he's been fishing. Now what crocodiles do is when the water comes down, like it is at the moment after the recent rains that we had, they will come to crossings like this. And as the fish move upstream and get wait basically for a chance to swim upstream, these crocodiles will wait in eddies and fish. And I've seen crocodiles waiting at weirs and at rocky falls like this. More times than I care to remember, really, with their mouths open. All they do is they wait for a fish to touch their jaws. They snap their jaws closed and they eat the fish. There in the background you can see some zebra. They are waiting on the edge here and don't go anywhere, to be honest with you, because these zebra are at one of these crossings. Now, at the blink of a hat, these animals can decide that this is where they want to cross right now from one side to another, and then we're going to see a very different crocodile in action to the one that we're seeing now. But without further ado, why don't we go and see what the cheetah that Scott has is up to.
Well, as you can see, the cheetah's not up to much, and I don't expect much to change. Which is fine, because we are certainly going to see the world's fastest animal doing its business at some point or another. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen today. And seeing as though there's so many other good prospects and we are so far away from camp, I think it would make sense for us to venture forth and see if we can't find any hungry cheetah perhaps, or one of the other many interesting animals that move around the Mara. I wonder what it ate. It'll be interesting to know. Difficult to backtrack from here, but it certainly did eat its fill. With cheetah you may find that they'll eat their fill and then just move off. They'll eat as much as they can take, unlike lion, who will stay at a kill, as will leopard, who can hoist their kill up into trees. These guys don't have that benefit, and because they are so slight and slender, they're not built for confrontation with the other big cats and hyena. So you find that their first preference of choices when confronted is to flee. Having said that, I have seen a male cheetah wallop a lone hyena before. I think the hyena got the fright of its life, as did I. Please prove me wrong. Please get up and go for a stroll. Come on. It'll be interesting to see if it's male or female. I'm not certain. I'm not sure if any of you consider yourselves cheetah experts and can shed some light onto the sex of this individual. I mean, it does seem quite big, so maybe it's a male. Ooh, time will tell. Looks like it's got a bit of a dead leg. No, just repositioning to ease one side of its body. Okay, well, seeing as though it's decided to pose like this, I think it's probably the right time for us to head on. So off we go. Have fun, everyone! Oh, well done. We were midway through a coffee break there, and we nearly lost the thermos and the coffee, but we're good. Cheers. We only received our picnic box about half an hour ago when we passed James, so we are looking forward to this cup of coffee that we haven't had the whole day. You all good there, Senzo? Good catch. Senzo did an incredible move there. With holding the camera with one hand, he slid his foot out and prevented the thermos from sliding off the edge of the vehicle. Well done, Senzo. This is a good road to drink a coffee on in this vehicle because you have to travel slowly because it's bumpy. It's good coffee sipping conditions. So much needed caffeine is getting into my system. Are you okay there, Senzo? Good, well, it's wonderful to have you on this mobile safari tea party. Who would have thought you'd be having a tea party in the Masai Mara? In the morning or in the evening or whatever time of day it is, wherever you may be watching. Speaking of which, I really loved doing a Facebook Live yesterday for some zebra crossings and just seeing where all the people are watching and seeing all the feeds come through. It's quite different to being in the vehicle because we obviously don't see everyone's questions and chitterings and chatterings. There's only so much the girls in Final Control can feed through to us. So I enjoyed that river cam narrating. However, I think I've been banned from controlling the camera after my poor efforts. I started off okay, and then as soon as things got exciting, my composure levels dropped drastically, and we were most often off the action as opposed to on it. Let's have a look here. I can just see a vulture plummeting out of the sky. It'll be interesting to see where it's landing. Oh, it's landed just out of sight, just beyond those wildebeest, just below that little ridge. We'll keep moving a little bit. I did see another vulture jump when it landed. Hello, Paula. You would like to know how much distance we cover during the live safaris, and it fluctuates hugely from day to day, but we've got 170,000 hectares within which to roam here, as opposed to the 2,000 to 3,000 hectares that the guys at Djuma have to traverse. So we can travel huge distances. The one day I did 100 miles. I mean, I was learning, it was a reconnaissance mission. I was kind of learning the roads and out to cover a fair amounts of ground and enjoy the sights along the way. And it wasn't difficult to rack up 100 miles in a day. So, I mean, I don't even think our eyes can see as far as we need to go, mainly because it's hazy, but our camp is a long way off from here, probably about 35, 40 kilometers, 25, 30 miles. So chops and changes, but we are just kind of getting into things here. We haven't got a routine yet, so we're feeling it. Some days you're close, some days you're not very, some days you travel a lot further. If you're with the Agama pride, you literally don't even leave camp because they're always on the doorstep, or at least they have been for the last few months. Let's hope it stays that way. Kids, Justin, to be honest, I like it plunged. I like filter coffee, but the one that you pour into one of those plungers, so like 3 or 4 teaspoons of the the coffee ground, plunger into the cup, milk, 2 sugars. Stock standard. This, however, is instant coffee. It's not the plunger coffee. Okay, well, enough from us and our tea party. You're going to go and get serious with Steph and some crocodiles.
I sometimes battle to imagine Scott being in a tea party, to be honest. Little blankie on the floor, dolls, teacups. He doesn't strike me as the type of person to do that. But we're still with our crocodile here, but what I want to draw your attention to is the crocodile's nemesis. And this is in the right-hand side of your screen, and you'll notice some movement there. This is the #1 predator of crocodiles. You wouldn't think it, But that is a Nile monitor lizard. And why I say that they are the number one predator of crocodiles is that they are responsible for killing the most crocodiles, I say as a single species, because they dig up crocodile eggs. So crocodiles lay their eggs underground, and it's the temperature of the eggs in the incubation chamber under the ground that determines the sex of the crocodiles, but that's for another discussion. This little guy is able to detect the faint noises of the growing embryos, but also of the temperature that these incubation nests sit at, and will dig open crocodile nests while mom is away, and will swallow the young and the yolk, and they almost relish it. They're very, very good at finding crocodile babies. Now I see it's obliged me by disappearing behind that crack there. They also hunt for almost anything that they can get their teeth into. And so while we're waiting for that to come out of the way, or to get out of that little crevasse there, we'll go back to our crocodile over here and have a look at this crocodile busy basking in the sun. And it gives you a very nice view, in my opinion, of the scales on a crocodile's back. I have a feeling that these scales on the back of the crocodile are there to help it maneuver in the water and change direction very quickly. But I also think that it can help the crocodile accelerate in an attack. Now, Marie, you wanted to know why this crocodile has its mouth open like this if it's not hunting. Marie, it's simply just to regulate its temperature. Crocodiles are cold-blooded, and this crocodile will be bouncing around between being a little bit too hot lying out in the sun and a little bit too cold to allow for effective metabolism to take place. And one of the ways they do it is by opening up the mouth. There's a lot of mucous membranes on the inside of the mouth, and water evaporates there in the breeze and cools the crocodile's blood down. And the crocodile therefore then can basically just manage its own temperature, which is what it's doing there at the moment. Isn't that just a fearsome, absolutely fearsome visage? Now, crocodiles have faces like we have fingerprints. Let me see if I said that correctly. We can use crocodiles' faces like we have fingerprints is probably the better way of putting it. And that every crocodile's face tells a history of its life. That's just a bony casing there, and crocodiles will snap at one another, and quite often there'll be telltale signs on a crocodile's face. One thing I have noticed, which I've never noticed before in crocodiles, and it's only since we got to the Mara and only since we've had these river cams up, is those two pits in the nose of a crocodile. Can you see them? I can't zoom in anymore. We're at our absolute maximum on the zoom of this particular lens, but have a look at those two pits that you can see in the crocodile's nose there. I noticed on another crocodile we had just now that he had similar pits, and I wonder if that isn't a collection point for these sensory organelle that I'm convinced these crocodile have. And you quite often see them go up and bump things that they are keen on investigating as a source of food. There's that lizard. I could just see its tail there now. Let's go in a little bit more. There in the center of your screen, it's coming up there now. Perhaps what it's going to be is bombed by this lapwing that's flitting around. Let's see if he sticks his nose out. Not going to do it. Still busy hiding in this drainage line. Not being very friendly from a video point of view today, is it? Let's give him another couple of minutes to come out from his hiding place. Let's see what else is here now. Ali, you asked, how long can a crocodile live on land for? Ali, that would totally depend on how much moisture is available around that crocodile. They can quite often go into, I suppose, what we could call estivation, which is a type of hibernation for reptiles. They encase themselves in mucus in a clay bed or clay bank, and they can stay for, I've heard reports of a year or two underneath this clay bank. Their skins are semi-permeable, and so they can get moisture through their skins. They can reduce their metabolism to virtually nothing. I've heard reports of 3 beats a minute for a heartbeat of a crocodile, and therefore it would use virtually no oxygen and burn virtually no fat. And they can stay in those states for a long, long time while they wait for the rains to return. I would imagine that an animal that's been on the face of this planet for the couple of 100 million years that these crocodiles have, to have developed some strategies to deal with drought, floods, any number of things. I must be honest with you, when we had the floods in the Kruger National Park in the year 2000, we were finding crocodiles a couple of days ahead of the floods. We were finding them in places in the middle of the Kruger where I'd never seen a crocodile before, underneath bushes. They were hiding in little ponds and pans, literally barely more than a teacup full of water, and you'd find a crocodile in there. In actual fact, for about a month or two, it was a thing that we were finding most on walks. Not elephant, not lion, not buffalo, but crocodiles. Can you imagine? Now, Bafokile, you wanted to know what the lifespan of a crocodile is? It depends on the book you read, Bafokile, but to be honest, I think it's probably in the region of about 60 to 80 years. I have heard reports of crocodiles going over 100, even as far as 150 years, but they're isolated. I would imagine that a crocodile in captivity can outlast many humans. Given the fact that it's fed and it doesn't need to defend itself and that it's in a warm area and a warm place. I would imagine that it can live for a long time. A crocodile that has a lot of hassle in keeping its body temperature normal, or a crocodile that doesn't get a lot of food will probably find it difficult to reach those ages, I would imagine. And so I would say between 60 and 80 years here, although I'd love for any of you out there to come up with any sort of, I suppose, any carbon dating of crocodiles. Do they do carbon dating for things that are that young? And please feel free to send through to the hashtag Safari Live if you can find any sort of scientific evidence or proof on how old crocodiles get. I'd love to learn about them with you. A dear friend of all of ours out there is Tara Piri has given me some papers, scientific papers on crocodiles. Look at that big yawn there. You can see the gap opening up in the throat. Did you see that flap opening? That was straight down into the tummy. A big yawn just to get circulation going. Back down to basking in the sun. Fantastic. Right. I can't remember who you're going to be linking to, please excuse me, but you are going to be going to one of my friends out there, and it is raining here where we are now. Hopefully it isn't raining as hard where they are.
It's not raining at all, mercifully, but I think it probably will be fairly soon. All right, we've come to some very steep crossings. I think there have been a lot of zebra and wildebeest that have gone across the river today, and this is a group of them. They don't look very, in fact, they do look wet. I think this lot have come across. There are some more the other side of the river still. We'll just get you into a position, hopefully, where we can show you the river. Now, our signal is a little bit dodgy in this area, but I'm going to drive very slowly. I'm afraid I missed that. Janet, you've asked a question. Fergus, would you like to relay it to me? Oh, I see. Janet, you're wondering what determines... Oh, look at this, look at this! You want to know what determines when the main migration starts? There is no such thing as the main migration, Janet. It is a continual movement of animals throughout this ecosystem in a general direction. And it's driven, yes, we think by instinct, but also we think by rain. We think that these animals follow the storms. That is the best idea that anyone's ever come up with as to why these animals move. Look at this wonderful line of wildebeest coming. This is fantastic stuff. Hooray. Very exciting. Soon you will hear them going bow, bow, bow. Isn't it wonderful? Oh, that's exciting. Now they're all coming down towards the river. We might be in for some serious action. What's wrong?
A very silly design on our camera.
Oh, I'm afraid we've just hit a small camera problem. Shall we go forward, Fergus? Let's move out the way. Let's see if we can't... Rebecca, keep us posted on picture. These chaps, I think, are going to leap into the river. This is amazing. What I don't want to do is block their way. We're going to have to wait here, I'm afraid, for them to go across the road. This is... There are hundreds and thousands of them. Oh, this is too special. I'm just a little worried that we're on the wrong side of them. But we should be the other side of them. What about my lapel? 1, 2, 1, 2. Should be alright, Rebecca. I'm not sure why it's very soft. Any idea there, Fergus? 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's find the side, Rebecca. I think you may have lost lapel in the final control. 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's find the side. No, it's not my hat. 1, 2. Sorry, everybody. 1, 2. No, it's gone. How's that?
Nothing, I've lost it.
Is that better?
No, I've lost it.
Nothing. Alright, let's go to Steph quickly and find out. We'll try and sort out this problem with these with the microphone.
Alrighty, we're back with me, Steph. I'm up in the tower up at our camp, and I'm busy looking down over the Mara, and we are busy manning the river cams and seeing what is at the 3 river cameras that we have available at the moment. What you're looking at now is main north, and you're having a look at some zebra that have crossed here previously. Now, I don't know if it's the same zebra, of course. It's difficult to say, but what I can say is that there's a lot of animals in this area, and just yesterday afternoon at exactly the same time, we had a whole bunch of zebra that decided that they'd cross over at this rapid. Now, they were attacked repeatedly by crocodiles living in this area, probably by the same crocodile that's busy lying just underneath the camera over here. Let me see if I can find him for you and show you this. There's a hippo there as well. We've got a lot of things here happening at the moment. I must be honest with you. It's always difficult to say exactly what we're going to be looking at. Let's go across here. Here's this crocodile. There you got him. This old guy is like right at the camera's edge. Now, please excuse me for my shoddy camera work. I know I'm going to be reprimanded for jumping too much around and not doing the right thing. I really battle with these cameras. But let's see if this crocodile, different crocodile to the one that we had at Dusty Crossing, but as I observed a little bit earlier, it still has those same 2 pits on his nose. I'm just wondering if those 2 pits are not sensory organelle of some sort. You see this crocodile just busy keeping an eye on this camera moving. It's obviously making a very faint noise. Now, if it would worry this crocodile, he would have jumped into the water. Crocodiles this big are super wary of their environment, and at the first hint of trouble would disappear. Now, Janet, you wanted to know what the larger of the 2 is, the crocodile or the alligator. Good question there, Janet, because you do get some massive alligators, but the winner is the crocodile. And I think it's just because of the environment that they grow up in, with the good food and the good water, with the saltwater crocodiles of Australia being the largest on Earth. So the saltwater crocodiles of Australia are the largest on Earth. Just have a look at this jaw. You could mistake me for saying that if it's taken in a different context, that would look like something out of a kid's dinosaur book, don't you think? Something like a T-Rex or something like that. Look at the flies and the ants crawling on his nose, busy picking at all the bits and pieces of detritus. Oh, I don't know if you've ever been this close to a crocodile, but I certainly haven't. Just so interesting to see. Now, why don't we go ahead and have a look at another camera that we have. We have got another camera here. We've got a camera called the mountain camera, which is just above my head. That is the view that I'm looking at right now. So that's my office for this afternoon. I know, you can be jealous. It is one of the best offices that you can possibly imagine. So while I'm busy playing with cameras and looking inside a crocodile's nostril, I'm also surrounded by the view that you're looking at the moment. You can see the rain. The sunlight patches right in the distance on the right-hand side, there in the far background. That is where James and Scott are driving around in at the moment, and that's why they're not in the rain. And I'm sure they're looking at the escarpment, thinking they're very glad for not being there. getting wet. Although we really do need this rain. Kenya needs this rain badly. They're in a drought. Just seems like when wild earth move into a place where sort of droughts happen. Isn't that the most amazing thing? Now I've reversed out of this shot where we were up the crocodile's nostril before we found something unpleasant there. And I'm now busy having a look and seeing what these zebra are doing. Now it's a good idea. There's another hippo there in the rapid, busy yawning. I wonder what he's opening up his mouth about. What are you doing? Why are you in the rapid, firstly? That's uncommon. And secondly, why are you opening up your face at everybody? They don't do that to yawn. They do that as a threat display. And I wonder if it isn't just getting a little bit nervous with all these animals being around. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stay on a wide over here and look to see if these zebra are going to come down to this crossing and what they're going to be doing. Why don't we send you over to Mr. Henry, who's got a crossing of his own.
All right, everybody, here we are. We are live looking at some... Fergus, there we are. We've had a very stressful time here. The sound seems to be back now. I think we're okay there. Some of these wildebeest are heading back towards the river, and I was just shouted at because I got in between them because I didn't want to get in their way, and then a whole lot of people shouted at me, so I now feel very sad about life generally. But I think that most of them have turned back towards the river, and now they're thinking of crossing. It's rather exciting. Some of them are heading away, some of them heading to. Many turning around. Watch the other side there, Ferg. Some of them seem to be wanting to go over. This is the very first time I've been to this crossing. Oh my goodness. Hello, Janet. I believe we didn't have audio when you asked your question. You said, what determines when the main migration starts? Is it instinct? Is it rain? Is it something else? And the answer is no one really knows. But we think that it has got to do with the fact that they follow the rain. They follow the rain, and remember that the main migration doesn't ever start or end. It is a continual movement of animals that happens throughout the year from the southern plains of the Serengeti up to the western corridor and then up into the Mara, back around again, and it seems to depend largely on food availability and rain. So I think that's what you'll find the answer to that question is. These chaps seem to be heading back down towards the river, towards us, which is quite nice. Now, these crossings that we're at are much steeper than the ones around where our main cameras are. And what tends to happen here is that the animals can injure themselves quite badly going down into the river. I just hope I don't... You see, I'm a little bit worried because I've never been here before, so I don't want to block them in any way. But as far as I can tell, where we're sitting, there is no path down to the river at all. So we should be fine here. Some of them seem to be going down towards the river. This is very exciting stuff, I must say. Justin, you say, what do I think starts a crossing? Justin, I just couldn't tell you. So often that I've seen, well, I mean, I have a vast experience of 3 weeks here watching crossings. But what I've seen is what you're seeing now. They come up to the river, they look, they turn around, they walk away. Then they start to mass away from the river, then they turn around, and then they come back again. And it's very difficult to tell what on earth makes them go to and fro across the river. So by the time I drove through the back end of that herd, most of them had turned round and were starting to move away anyway. So they come and they look at the river and then they decide, is this a good idea or is it not a good idea? And the trick is definitely not to try, not to get in their way. Either side. So you don't want to be in their way this side and you don't want to be in their way the other side either. Now, I'm not sure I've got this name right, but is it Rado, perhaps? Rado, you say, do the hippo ever attack the migrating animals when they try and cross the river? Yeah. No, Rebecca, I'm afraid the name... Redool. Marie? Dool. Marie Dool. There we go. You say, do the hippo ever attack the wildebeest as they cross the river? I don't think so, but that said, we have watched some very strange things with the hippo, where the hippo have turned and had a go at either the crocodiles that are eating a migrating animal, or they've had a go at the migrating animal that is drowning itself. So it's difficult to tell what exactly they've had a go at. Oh, this is just magnificent. And look at the light streaming out of the clouds there. I think you'll find that has quite a lot to do with how close we are to the equator. Those rays tend to shine all day long. Yeah, most of this group's turned around. Alright, we're going to head back to Scott, have a look at his view of the light rays now. I'm going to not move from here. We'll see if this herd doesn't turn around. Sometimes they do. In the meantime, back over to Scott.
So, a beautiful afternoon, as James says, with these rays poking through. Let's hope we don't get caught in these storm clouds up ahead of us. We are heading into what looks like some heavy rain, but it could change course and hopefully miss us. Hard to be certain, but we are ready to batten down the hatches and drop the flaps if need be. We are now on the western side of the Mara River, heading north back towards camp. We're a little bit further downstream from where James is. He's waiting a little bit further upstream with those wildebeest. We actually also spent some time with the herd. We spent about an hour waiting to see if they didn't pluck up the courage to plunge across the river, but they didn't come close while we were there. But it's not uncommon for people to sit and wait for 5-6 hours with hundreds and thousands of wildebeest gathering without the cork popping, and unless the cork pops, which just requires one animal. I'm told even if one animal slips in accidentally and creates a splash, that's enough of a trigger to get everyone going. And then the floodgates open, so hopefully James will become fortunate with that and call you back to his vehicle. Now I think my plan is to try and leapfrog ahead of James and then try and get you further north, closer to camp, with the hope of trying to track down some of the Agama pride. Ideally we would find the lioness with the 3 smallest cubs, one of which was stuck in a little gully on Saturday morning, and we have a report that it is now out, but of course we would like to confirm this with our own eyes. So that is my goal. We'll be able to, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. We're going to send you back to one of the wonderfully positioned river cams now, though, with Steph.
We have got such a nice view with these river cams. Thank you very much, Scott. But we've got some impala. Now, these are these East African impala that are so much bigger than the South African counterparts. Not because they are different species whatsoever, but simply because the abundant grass and the sort of never-ending summer that Kenya has means that these impala pretty much are constantly in the rut, which means that they are giving birth almost all year round. There will be a slight increase and decrease in frequency of births as the seasons slip by. But there's no summer or winter out here. There you go. There's the big male. Now, the biggest difference is with the males. Their horns are easily I would hazard to say double the length, but very close to double the length of their South African counterparts. And just look at this guy here, chasing his females around. And that is because being in a constant state of rut means that these impala are almost always infused with more testosterone than any impala anywhere else. And it makes their horns grow incredibly long. It doesn't give them more muscles, interestingly enough. They're not bigger bodied, it would seem to me. I haven't been home in a couple of months, so it's difficult for me to say, but I would imagine that these impala are not much bigger than the impala in South Africa. Certainly not in the rut that I've seen, at least anyway. The impala in South Africa get massive. Massive necks, massive shoulders. There's a zebra's head sticking out of the savannah as well. There you can see that deep curl in that horn. And that is significant compared to South Africa's. And that is just simply because of the fact that we are on the equator here, whereas in South Africa we are 22 degrees south. So a massive amount of distance between here and there. And that gives us seasons. It gives us a winter and a summer. It means that means that the grass grows in very specific times of the year, and animals that eat grass need to coincide their births and their pregnancy with the best grass that gives their fetuses and their babies the best chance of nutrition. Whereas right here, they don't have to worry about that. And they can constantly stay and make babies, basically. And that allows them to have those massive horns. Now, that giraffe, as Rebecca is kindly pointing out to me, is in need of some notice. It's just a neck and head floating above the savannah, obviously much further away than these impala are at the moment. And I can see, even at this distance, I can tell that it's a bull giraffe. And I do that by, let's take us as close as what we can go. There you go. So if you have a careful look at the top of those horns, you'll notice that the black tufts are not joined. It doesn't look like a paintbrush. It is definitely bald on top. That is typical male pattern baldness that giraffes suffer from, as do James Henry and myself. Basically makes identifying male from female giraffe at a distance relatively easy. Also, the horns are a lot more robust than those of females, and quite often females' horns point toward one another and not straight up like those of the male giraffes. And that is because a giraffe uses his horns to wrestle. Now, they're not real horns, they're called ossicones, and that is because they do not have a bony core, although at this particular age, they are fused to the skull. What giraffes do is they swing their heads at one another with great speed and obviously a lot of momentum and weight, and they use it as a battering ram to try and batter the legs and the flanks of an opponent, to try and force the giraffe to fall down on the floor, their opponent that is. And in so doing, exert a massive dominance over a fallen victim, and then get, in their eyes they look super sexy for the ladies, I would imagine. Let's go and see what's happening. I think this crossing is emptied out. But anyway, why don't we send you over to James, whose wildebeest are on the move.
Deeply irksome. How's that, Rebecca? Are you hearing me? Apparently there's a problem with the volume control. Alrighty, I think we're going to move very slightly. Can we move, Ferg? I think they're going down towards the river. I'm not going to go in towards the herd. I just want to see if we can get a slightly better view of where they might cross, which of course will be down over here. In fact, with this camera, this should be a perfect position. It will be, actually. Unless they go around the corner. A bit of time. I'll just show you the river. There you can see around the corner. You see over there, Ferg? Please excuse the pole again. I do apologize. It is because the roof is threatening to come down. Anyway, it looks like there's a spot there that they might come up. But what I don't want to do is disturb the process. And I think an approach from the other side might have been a good one. And there, oh look, there are wildebeest crossing the other side now. It looks like. Goodness gracious, it's all happening here. There's a zebra coming this way, wildebeest going that way. I don't know where to go. The biggest herd is the one behind us. I don't know if they're going yet. I'm not even sure how we'll get a view from this side. Just looking behind me to see if they've gone down. I think they're going down there. Do you think they're going down here? Everybody, it's very difficult to tell. Few of them massing that side. I think while we're discussing this, we're going to go to Stephanie's crocodile. Is that correct?
We have definitely got this crocodile. This is you back with me here at Dusty Crossing. And we've got some hippos and some crocodiles that are sharing this space. Here's another crocodile there. Now, Finn, who's only 8 years old. Hello, Finn. I hope you're doing okay today, wherever you are. You wanted to know, in actual fact, I've forgotten your question. Rebecca, please repeat Finn's question. I was flabbergasted at his age. Sorry, Finn. It's you asked, do crocodiles make any sounds? They absolutely do, Finn. They make a whole range of sounds. A normal sound that they make is like a gurgling roar, but they can also make sounds that we can't hear. Now, what is interesting, and see if you can find it, Finn, if you have access with your parents, of course, supervision, to some internet, you can figure out what crocodiles... Oh, hang on. We will carry on with this, Finn, in a little bit. We're going to send you over to James, who's got a crossing. Hold on. James has run out of signal, but I can see that his signal is getting a little bit better from where I am. We're just trying to find it. We've got some wildebeest crossing with James. We're losing it. James is very far from here at the moment, and so what's happening is we're dipping in and out behind trees and hills and all that sort of stuff between where we are and James, and it's making it very difficult for us to get a signal, but we're trying really hard. We'll try and get it for you. In the meantime, Finn, I'm going to answer your question about crocodiles making noises. Now, crocodiles will make a noise that we can't hear. Now, it's hard to imagine a sound that we can't hear, but dogs can hear sounds that we can't hear, dolphins can hear sounds that we can't hear, hippopotamus can hear sounds that we can't hear, and crocodiles can hear sounds that we can't hear. They can even make sounds that we can't hear, and what is evidenced by it is the ripples that occur above a crocodile's back when they're making these very low frequency noises. Now what happens is they make such a low frequency noise that the water above a crocodile's back gets agitated and can jump up and down, almost like disco lights, to be quite honest. It looks really, really weird. So they do make a lot of different sounds. Just have a look how camouflaged these crocodiles are. Let's go out a little bit, go wide a little bit. See if I can show you how camouflaged they become against a green bank, that they almost look like stumps. Now that counter shading that they've got, they're very creamy white on their bellies, and they are camouflaged on the top of their bellies. It's called counter shading. You find the same thing in great white sharks. And what happens is that from the top looking down, they look like all the leaf detritus on a floor. But from the bottom looking up, they look like the bright sun against the sky. You can imagine what a crocodile looks like in murky water on leaf-covered bottom of a river. They would be virtually invisible. Isn't that absolutely amazing? Now, it looks like James has got some signal. Why don't we go and see, or try and see, if you can see what he's looking at.
We're live, everybody. Well, here we go. So We can't use the radio now at all because it breaks up the signal, but we've got a crossing in progress, and this crossing doesn't seem to have any of those nasty villainous crocodiles around. The animals are just leaping into the water, enjoying the cool, enjoying the drink, and I think somebody's just seen a crocodile. I'm just looking carefully. No, I think that's a bit of a rapid. I don't think it's a croc. Can't see any crocodiles here, which is wonderful for the animals. Not so much for the excitement, of course, of the crossing, but that depends entirely on your point of view, doesn't it? Fantastic stuff. And we'll just see if we can't spot a croc or two. Now, I believe we're also with Nat Geo Wild. Hello Nat Geo Wild, all of you watching on the Facebook page of Nat Geo Wild, please send us your questions and comments in the comments section. We'll do our very best to try and answer those questions that you might have. But this is a live crossing coming to you out of the Masai Mara. My name is James Henry, Fergus is on camera, and we are desperately pleased to be bringing you one of the most quintessentially, quintessential wildlife shots that you can find in Africa. Now these crossings, although they are treacherous for the animals to make because of the steepness of the banks, tend to be much easier for them because for some reason the crocodiles just don't seem to be spending a great deal of time around these areas. This is very, very special. And how wonderful that it is live. Now we are live, as I say, and that brings with it certain technical difficulties, and so if you are sending through questions and we're not getting them, I do apologize for that. We're doing our very best, and we are enjoying this as much as you are. What a spectacular view. There are a whole lot more coming now from the other side, and for them to be completely unharassed like this is really astounding. And it makes me wonder, we are now down quite far south on the Mara River, quite close to the Tanzanian border, and what happens quite often up north, of course, is that the animals are unable to cross without being harassed by crocodiles. But here, there just seems can cross together. Of course, why they do it is another matter. We've now got a whole lot of zebra coming in from the other side, which is a bit bizarre. They're calling to the others. That's a sound that you can hear. Isn't that wonderful? That's the sound of those zebra calling to the zebra at the other side. Very special indeed. What they're saying, I don't know. Sounds like a mixture between an alarmed donkey and a squeaky bicycle.